Howdy, partner.
Howdy.
Tony and I are here on Little Wars TV to give you a rule review for a Wild West gunfight system called Ruthless. Ruthless was written this year by Mark Fastoso and Brian DeWitt, and it is designed for small-scale Wild West gunfights. Tony and I are going to review this the way we do on all reviews here on Little Wars TV. We have 5 different categories. You can see them on the screen now. They're all weighted a little bit differently based on which categories we feel are more critical. And Tony, why don't you start us off with our first category and talk about the presentation of this game.
First off, it's a 2-page, 1 sheet of paper set of rules.
This is the whole game. Yeah.
That said, this is a good look. It's got a vaguely Wild West reminiscent typeface. There's a little bit of color on here. For presentation, given that it is a sheet of paper, I gave it an 8.
Okay, yeah. I kind of had to grade this one on the curve a little bit because it is only available as a PDF, so you've got to print this out at home, and it is only 2 pages, so it feels a little weird to give it a 10. And I don't think I can give it a 10, but I'm going to give it a 9 because it is extremely concise. It's hard to be more concise than 2 pages. And like you said, I think it looks great. All right, our second category is playability. This is 30% of the entire score, so this is a very important category. And here we're looking at how easy is it to teach a new player the game, how quickly can you get started in terms of miniatures and playing space. And to be honest, Ruthless is, in my opinion, faultless in this category. It's a 2-page game, so it really couldn't be any easier to pick up and get going. And you only need about 2 to 4 miniatures per player, so it is an extremely low figure count game. In our episode that you saw on Tombstone, we played this game on a series of just 2-foot by 2-foot tables. So, I mean, a kitchen table that you have at home is more than enough space in order to play this game. It's really hard to imagine how it could be any easier to get going. Plus, as we mentioned at the start, the rules are free. So I am giving Ruthless a 10 out of 10. That is a pretty rare score that any of us give on Little Wars TV. I don't know what could be better.
Well, Greg.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Because as you pointed out earlier, I am a stingy, grumpy old bastard.
Yeah, is that your grumpy old bastard hat you're wearing right there?
That's my grumpy old bastard hat.
All right.
I like the game. It is easy to play. There's a low figure count. I gave it an 8, which is probably as high a playability score as I've given anything.
An 8? What could be better? What is it about this that could be any faster or any... What do you want it to be 1 page? Is 2 pages too long for you?
Our next score, mechanics, is the system and whether or not that system has any new innovations or not. It's a pretty simple system of activation. It's card driven. Card driven is fairly commonplace. I gave it a 7.
Okay, I gave it an 8, so just a little bit higher than you. I agree there's nothing terribly innovative about it, but the mechanics all flow really nicely for a 2-page system. And the cards that you mentioned, I mean, there's no custom cards in this game. It's just a poker deck, which is, appropriate for a Wild West game. And at the start of every turn, each player is dealt 5 random cards out of a standard poker deck. And you use those cards in order to do multiple things, which is a mechanic that I really like. The main use for the cards is to bid for activation. So every player lays down 1 card, and you simultaneously reveal those cards, and the highest card is the player who gets to activate all of their models first. And there is, listed in the sequence of play, there is a tiebreaker for suits. So it's spades, hearts, diamonds, clubs. So that means every card in the deck automatically kind of has a ranking. But in addition to the initiative, you also get to use the cards throughout the turn for other things, and I think that's what adds an interesting nuance to it. Do you want to talk about what a couple of those other things are that you can use the cards for?
You can use the cards to interrupt your opponent's action, which is, of course, in a gunfight scenario, critically important.
Yes.
Black Bart comes around the corner, guns drawn. I'm looking through my deck. Do I have a card I can interrupt that with? Because I'm not in the mood to be shot by Black Bart today. It's a neat mechanic. It's not, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? Or this has never been done before.
Yeah, totally agreed. And the other mechanics in the game are also likewise simple, elegant, but not innovative. Shooting, you actually do roll d10s in this game, so you are going to need a couple of dice. And there's a value that you need to hit at short range and long range. The weapons are also very simple. On the back of this, there's just a couple of weapons listed. And you do have to track ammo in this game. So you are going to have to print out... Yeah, that's important in a Wild West game where you got 5 or 6 rounds in a revolver. So you are going to have to print out character cards, and we can put some of those on screen so you can see what an example character card looks like. But on this card, you're going to track ammunition. You're also going to track wounds. And this is a place where it's going to tell you the toughness rating of your character, which is kind of a catch-all for his abilities, and if you have any special character traits. That's another neat little nuance that I like in the rules. There are a couple of character trait options, which gives the game just, a little bit of flavor, which for a 2-page system, I think that it does really well.
Well, let's talk about flavor, shall we?
Absolutely. Let's talk about historical flavor. What are your thoughts?
For what we have here in a 2-page rule set, I thought it did a good job. It's not super granular or gritty, but it does make you feel the role of, hey, I'm in a Wild West gunfight. I gave it a 7.
Likewise, I also gave it a 7. I agree. If you're grading on the curve for the fact that it is a 2-pager, it's outstanding. If you take a little bit more of an expansive view, it's only okay. And, we've played a lot of Wild West rules here in this club. A lot. And all of them are a lot longer and more complicated than Ruthless. And I think there is some merit to a heftier system. When you're doing a Wild West gunfight and you really only have a couple of models out there per player, I can totally understand why people would prefer something a little bit meatier. I mean, I'm thinking of a recent system that we've run a few times here is Joe Veltre's Gunslinger's Paradise. That is a much more detailed system where there's a huge chart of different weapons, and there's 10 different types of revolver that you can carry, which is great historical flavor. In Ruthless, there's 2 revolvers. That's it. There's 1 repeating rifle. There's 1 shotgun. So if there's a place in this game where I might have liked to see a little bit more done, it would be on the weapons. I wouldn't have minded just a couple of more options there.
Again, let's go back to
yeah, I know.
A single sheet of paper.
I know. There's only so much you can do on a single sheet of paper.
And I think, given the fact that it is a 2-page rule set, it definitely does a better than average job.
All right, Tony, that brings us to our final category where we're going to talk about support. And Ruthless was just released by Mark for free this year. So thank you to Mark. Really, Mark, thank you for putting this out there because I think that is a huge service to the community.
This is another one of those products that's going to get people wargaming. We'll put a link so that you can get to it.
Yeah, his website, I believe, is fireballforward.com. He's the author of the World War II set, Fireball Forward, but he's going to host the rules there on his website, along with some free scenarios. There may also be some scenario packs available for purchase, as I understand.
So, that said, it's a free set of rules. There's support coming out on the website. It doesn't cost anything. What more do you want?
So this is the part of the review where Tony and I gave our scores for support, but you should probably ignore most of what we said. And that's because we filmed the review that you're watching 5 months ago, and a lot has happened over the last 5 months. In fact, our club kind of fell in love with the Ruthless rules as a way to resolve mini-campaigns and linked scenarios in a single evening. We like it so much that we created our first ever boxed set, the Tombstone Tinderbox, as a complete historical wargame in a box. This set includes miniatures, buildings, trees, game accessories, Ruthless unit cards, the rules, and so much more. We have a lot more details about this box set coming out before the end of the month, but for the purposes of this review, we just wanted to say that there is a lot more support available for Ruthless now than there was when we recorded the review originally. This month, we have free scenarios coming out for a historical mini-campaign set just before the events at the OK Corral, along with a less historical game based on one of my favorite Clint Eastwood movies. And now we'll transport you back in time 5 months ago for the rest of the Ruthless review. The last thing that I want to mention, and I'm not sure where the right place is to talk about this during our review, but we can talk about it during support, is that Mark and his co-author Brian DeWitt, they based Ruthless off of another free set of rules. The original game was a one-page system, as I understand it, and it was called A Town Called Malice. I tried to find the original online, and it's no longer available, so I don't know how old it was. There are references to it in people's blogs. I believe it was maybe like a convention game that club ran at some of the big shows. Later on here on Little Wars TV, Steve and Chow, two of the other guys in our club, they're going to have a discussion about homebrew rules and about taking existing rule sets and expanding them. That's a time-honored tradition.
It certainly is.
In the wargaming community. So Tony, now that we get to our sort of final review, let's talk about how our weighted scores came together. Mine came out, when you do our weighting system, to an 84, which I believe could be the highest score that I've ever given to a set of rules.
84, is it?
Yeah, and where did you come out, you stingy old bastard?
I will just point out, this guy is a college graduate, so his math is probably reasonably accurate.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 95% chance that I got that right.
And he did my math because...
You throw me under the bus, why don't you? Yeah.
While I'm a stingy old bastard, I'm also an ignorant old bastard. So my math skills, Mets. That said...
So what did I tell you that your score came out to be, Tony?
If you add up all my scores, I gave it a 73, which likewise, if you look back over the reviews, there's pretty much nothing that I liked that got higher than 70 couple. 73 to 76 seems to be the sweet spot for me for a set of rules I like.
Yeah, now normally this is the part of the review at the end where we talk about the price and we ask whether it's worth whatever the dollar value is, and if you fell asleep for the first 90% of this review, this game is free. So in terms of whether or not it's worth you downloading a copy of Ruthless, I think the answer is yes.
Absolutely.
As I said earlier in the review, we have played a lot of Wild West games in this club, and I think it's important to tell the viewers that we've gone through a period of years here where we really didn't do any Wild West gaming because we just didn't really enjoy the sets all that much.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the problem is it's the nature of Wild West gaming, right? I mean, you set up your little town, everybody brings their posse into town, and then everybody just kind of goes to the middle of the town and starts shooting each other. So it's not the most tactically interesting game. And that's why, after going through a whole bunch of different rule sets here at the club, we just found ourselves not playing that often. And it was not until Mark sent us Ruthless that interest in Wild West gaming has sort of ticked upward again at the club. And I am definitely a part of that. I rekindled my interest and my love for Wild West figures. I started painting more of my figures. I finished a couple of the buildings I was working on, because one of the great things about Ruthless is that because the game is so short, because you need so few figures and you can resolve a scenario in like an hour, it enables you to string together multiple games in the course of one evening, so you don't fall prey as much to that let's all go into the town and shoot it out in the town square. Now we can string a couple of games together like we did on the Tombstone episode. That, I think, really makes Wild West gaming more interesting if you're able to build a narrative, if you can string multiple scenarios together. But to do that, you need a really fast game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've done here at the club a couple of times almost like a Wild West movie where we've done 3 acts.
Yeah.
These are the figures you start with, and they're going to appear in the next act, and a little luck maybe in the 3rd act, and maybe some new characters will get introduced as it goes along, and one side or the other at the end will be the winner. I really do think this has rekindled interest in Wild West, and we've gone through a lot of rules and played once or twice and went,
Yeah, just not interesting enough.
Yeah.
And that 3-act structure you mentioned, Mark actually wrote a 3-act game that we played here at the club, and it was a lot of fun. I'm sure it will be available on his website, and it's based on the Fistful of Dollars trilogy with Clint Eastwood, and it takes you through 3 acts of that. So that's something that you can go to fireballforward.com and you can get a copy of that. All right, gang, thanks so much for watching this review here on Little Wars TV. We would love for you to go and download a free copy of Ruthless, and once you play the game and have a chance to give it a spin, leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you think of it and what your score would be.
And with that said, I believe it's time to go upstairs to the bar and get a sarsaparilla.
Indeed, sir.